Welcome to the Explainer. Let's just jump right in, because I want to thrust you straight into the deafening, vibrating chaos of the Azteca Stadium on June 11, 2026. Just picture this for a second. It's the absolute pinnacle of global sports. You have millions of fans watching worldwide and over 80,000 screaming supporters packed into one of the most legendary arenas on Earth for the opening match of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Okay, so let's dive into this incredible moment. We're watching host Mexico face off against South Africa, and the tension in the midfield play, it is absolutely palpable. It's early in the game, nerves are running high, and both teams are kind of just feeling each other out. But then, suddenly, there's this catastrophic defensive error from the South African backline. A perfectly weighted, razor-sharp through ball splits the defense wide open, and the Azteca literally erupts. The ensuing stadium chaos and the pure emotional fan reactions are just deafening as Mexico seizes the lead. But the context of exactly when and how this all happened is really what makes it so historic.
Now, there's one critical number I really want you to focus on, and that's 9. We are only in the 9th minute of the opening match. I mean, talk about an unbelievably explosive start. Mexican winger Julian Quiñones latches onto that through ball, doesn't hesitate for even a fraction of a second, and just smashes this powerful, unstoppable top corner finish right past the South African goalkeeper. In just 9 minutes, the very first goal of the 2026 tournament is on the board, kicking off these wild player celebrations down on the pitch.
All right, moving right along to Section 1, Anatomy of a Striker.
Look, the sheer dominance of these numbers is just staggering. At 29 years old, Quiñones didn't just walk out onto that pitch and get lucky. Not at all. If we look at his 2025-2026 season for his club, Alcatia, he scored a massive 33 goals in just 31 matches. He netted 4 hat tricks. And honestly, the most incredible stat of the whole shebang, he actually took the scoring crown as the top scorer of the Saudi Pro League, literally outscoring legendary, massive names like Cristiano Ronaldo. So this is a player arriving at the World Cup at the absolute undeniable peak of his lethal finishing power.
To put that into perspective, if we look at the historical timeline, Quiñones' rocket is actually the fastest opening goal in a World Cup since Germany's Philipp Lahm unleashed his famous strike in the 6th minute all the way back in 2006. Think about that. For 20 years, we haven't seen an opener kick off with this much immediate, explosive firepower. Opening games of a World Cup are notoriously tense, cagey affairs, which makes an early goal like this incredibly rare. Which leads us to Section 2. Capturing cinematic emotion.
So how was this raw human emotion captured so perfectly for our screens? Well, broadcasters are increasingly using this brilliant piece of technology called cinefade. Normally, if a camera operator wants to blur the background to, say, isolate a crying or celebrating player, they have to open up the camera's iris. But in a bright, sunny stadium, doing that would just let in way too much light and the image would blow out completely white. Well, cinefade solves this. It uses a motorized variable ND filter. So as the camera's iris opens to blur the background, the filter dynamically darkens the lens to maintain perfect exposure. It's a real game changer, allowing operators to transition from a wide, deep shot to a shallow cinematic portrait in a fraction of a second, completely live. The absolute crucial point here is this visual contrast. Standard broadcast depth of field keeps everything in focus, right? You see the whole picture, the players, the ads, the crowd in the back. And that's great for seeing the tactical play. But the cinematic, shallow depth of field, captured on these massive cameras like the Sony HDCF 5500, isolates the subject. When Quiñones drops to the turf, screaming in celebration, the chaotic stadium around him just melts away into a soft blur. Your eye is forced directly onto his face, forging this massive, immediate emotional connection that standard wide-angle broadcast shots just cannot achieve.
Let's dive into Section 3, the gritty stadium grade.
Now, post-production and live shading are where this really comes to life. Professional cameras shoot in a format called log, specifically S-Log3, which preserves massive amounts of dynamic range, but honestly, it looks completely flat and gray to the naked eye. To get our final Gladiator Arena look, colorists follow 3 quick steps. Step 1, they convert that flat S-Log3 footage back to a standard color space, Rec. 709. Step 2, they apply a stylized lookup table or LUT. In our example from the sources, a Black Mamba LUT is used. It's literally designed specifically for high-energy, gritty sports visuals. And step 3, they manually tweak the S-curve to finalize the contrast. It is a remarkably fast workflow that instantly transforms gray, flat footage into a cinematic masterpiece.
But live sports? That requires sheer technical precision. When shading this footage live, colorists rely heavily on waveform monitors to hit exact targets. You've got blazing bright stadium floodlights on one hand and deep, dark shadows on the pitch on the other. So to ensure the bright lights don't clip or just turn into pure, detailless white, the highlights are targeted just under 100 on the scope. And to ensure the shadows don't just turn pitch black, they are kept carefully above 0. This is literally the math behind the magic.
And that brings us to the final polish, the deep S-curve. By manipulating this specific color grading curve, the colorist pulls the shadows down while simultaneously pushing the midtones and highlights up. What does this actually do to the image? Well, it creates this beautiful soft highlight roll-off and visually separates the Mexican players, practically popping them right off the green turf. It gives the image that heavy, dramatic weight that makes the match feel completely larger than life.
All right, Section 4, the perfect vertical delivery.
How did millions of fans actually consume this moment? Because honestly, this right here is the exact anatomy of a viral sensation on YouTube Shorts in 2026. First off, it absolutely must be in a vertical 9:16 orientation for mobile. Second, and this is absolutely critical, you have to win the first 1 to 3 seconds. The algorithm demands high retention. So you don't start with the boring midfield passing, you start the clip mid-action, right as that razor-sharp through ball is played. Next, you need visual changes every 2 to 4 seconds to keep the viewer hooked, cutting rapidly between that cinematic wide shot and the tight, blurred celebration. You add large, high-contrast burned-in captions for the millions of people watching on mute, and finally, you design the whole edit to be loopable, so the end of the celebration flows seamlessly right back into the start of the play. That is what drives massive replay value.
But wait, we absolutely cannot forget the sonic framing. The final ingredient in this viral delivery is the audio, specifically underscoring this gritty, high-contrast visual with an epic, unbreakable orchestral soundtrack, exactly like the Rise of Champions track highlighted in our sources. The majestic, soaring music creates this incredible contrast with the gritty visuals on screen. It grounds all that cutting-edge camera and editing tech in a pure, timeless Rise of Champions narrative, really amplifying the raw human emotion unfolding on the pitch.
And that brilliant fusion of sports, tech, and emotion kind of brings us to a close here. We've seen how Julián Quiñónez's historic strike wasn't just a feat of athletic brilliance, it was a total masterpiece of live production and viral distribution. But it leaves us with this final provocative thought to chew on. With cinematic cameras pulling us into the players' very souls and instant vertical delivery fundamentally changing how we feel the rhythm of the game, how will technology redefine our next legendary sports moment? I hope you found this breakdown as fascinating as I did. Keep your eyes on the game, and we'll see you in the next explainer.